Sir Evan Larry.
I'm Jack Condo.
I'm Chris Leon.
We're fifth-year dissertation students at Curtin University, and we're taking our thesis a little bit differently than other schools and working in a collaborative environment with a team of 4 students in 4 specialised areas.
Every one of us will have a set of skills that we develop, and our job is to help each other to really build not just our projects, but in terms of the way how we see the project and how we can actually contribute as part of our whole firm and whole practice.
So my dissertation came about from a preoccupation I had for the last 4.5 years, where I would look at a building and I'd be intrigued by its form and the way it looked like it was expressing, moving like a wave flowing into an ocean, or something crashing, or something breaking, or something breathing. Just this emotive language that was behind these buildings. And I was looking at, I started to research these projects, and I came up with a term called implied movement, where a building is expressing life or is perceived to be alive by the play it has on the human mind. I took this further in my dissertation and took it further than just a formal basis and said, what if a building was alive? What if it could breathe? What if it had the systems like a body and it wasn't just a formal representation of an organic structure? What if the skin could react to external conditions like our skin reacts? It can breathe, it acts as a barrier, it resists, it expands, it contracts. All these different elements. What if the building could think? What if it could read its occupants and react to the way they work? Or react to the external conditions and send a signal to the nervous system so the building could react to something else that's happening in the lower part of the building? All these questions started to come up. And my dissertation is about looking at the systems of life, whether it be insect, whether it be human, whether it be a sea creature, whatever the aspect of life it may be, and incorporating the systems into a building and reverse engineering them into a new architectural species, which brings in all the other disciplinary approaches of nanotechnology, biomimicry, biogenetics, bioengineering, and making architecture a science again and incorporating.
My thesis come from a personal experience and observations, I guess. Growing up on the coastal edge, and I was quite fascinated by these changing edge conditions, and that's where the research started. And I suppose what drew that out was just basically made me realise that the edge is in constant change, and I suppose that's where it come into architecture. I was quite curious with how this influences architecture, when architecture is seen or can be perceived as static. It's quite reactive, it's not proactive, it doesn't adapt to change, it's quite stagnant in essence. So how does that account for an uncertain future or a constant changing environment and terrain? So upon further studying these edge conditions, I'd be designing with uncertainty, which would include the use of futuristic forecastings, which could mean a wide range of things, including climate change, environmental disaster, and this is where the whole designing for uncertainty is going to come into play. And each edge condition will be hopefully individualised based on the forecastings and the site context, creating individual interventions that allow for an uncertain, adaptable future.
My dissertation, basically starts from my interest in model making. For me, model making is not just a normal skill that one can acquire. It's a form of language that breaks barriers. For instance, like architecture, people describe, people write about architecture, but people do make architecture. And nowadays, having all these different tools, what sort of architectural language are you trying to make? What sort of language are you trying to speak about architecture? Well, language comprises a lot of different components. You have the verbs, you have different adjectives, or you have different propositions that sort of links everything together. Architectural language is the same as well. So what if you were to develop a series of different components that links up to a speech where you narrate architecture through modeling and become something more than just items on platforms or items on just desks, but more likely it's telling you a story something that helps you to get closer, get intimate with it. And what was that? What would that be?
My architectural dissertation started off from a point of reflection on the 5 years of architecture that I have been studying at Curtin. For me, architectural education has really been about inquiry, collaboration and creative practice. And central to the course is the design studio itself. The studio is a confluent space. The confluence is known as the junction point between two rivers. And I'm really interested in exploring the potential of the studio, and my study looks to develop this through the re-examination of confluent architecture. This project is quite exciting because what it presents is the opportunity for programs to come together that don't come together in an ordinary sort of form, and they're quite conflicting, and the architecture that it could produce is quite radical, and it doesn't really exist anywhere else.